Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to the Schatz and Tanier NFL podcast on the FTN Network for November 9th, 2023. It's week 10 in the NFL. I am Aaron Schatz of the FTN Network. You find my stuff at ftnfantasy.com/DVOA, and I am not joined by Mike Tanier because of a strange tuna melt accident. He has to get some dental work. Don't ask me how tuna melt and dental work connect, but they do. And therefore, Bryan Knowles is with us. Bryan, formerly a compatriot of ours at Football Outsiders, now writes for the FTN Fantasy DVOA page each week, as well as what's the other site you write for?
Play sheet at Playoff Predictors, where we talk about all kinds of playoff scenarios and break them down.
Yes, he is the master of playoff scenarios. Play sheet at Playoff Predictors. So Bryan and I are here to preview Week 10 in the NFL. And if you are watching us live, which, of course, if you're listening afterwards on the podcast, we are live every Monday and Thursday at 11 o'clock Eastern. You can make comments or ask questions, and we will answer your questions and take your comments as we talk about the top games of Week 10, which, as Bryan was pointing out to me before we went on the air, is a terrible week for primetime games.
Yeah. I mean, we're not going to spend much time covering the epic Carolina-Chicago showdown tonight, which looked like a bad game when they scheduled it, 4 months ago. You got Jets-Raiders Sunday night. You got Bills-Broncos Monday night. You got Colts-Patriots in Germany. You could almost not pick four worse games for the isolated windows if you tried.
The NFL going into this season, it's clear what they think are going to be teams on the rise when they make the schedule. Clearly, they did not consult with me about the Chicago Bears. No. And they thought the Bears were a team on the rise. And, I mean, even before Fields got hurt, they were wrong. Now that it's Tyson Bagent, they're really wrong. But that's why we've been subjected to so much Bears in primetime this year.
That makes sense in weeks 2 or 3 where you're trying to figure out who's good and who's not. We're in week 10. We are now exactly at the midway point of the season. 136 games down, 136 to go. Use your flex options, NFL.
Yes. It's surprising that some of these games are not getting flexed. Next week, I can't remember what Sunday night is, but it was an easily flexible game and they didn't flex it, and it's very strange. Let's talk about the good games. The good games take place at 1 o'clock and a little bit at 4 o'clock. I mean, speaking of national games, the national Fox game at 4 o'clock is Tommy DeVito and the New York Giants against Dallas, right? Because Dallas and the Giants have such big fan bases that's the national game. 1 o'clock is when most of the good games are, led by the Browns at the Ravens. It is the most important game for our Super Bowl odds. The Browns make the Super Bowl in 5.9% of sims when they win, 2.1% if they lose. The Ravens, who are adored by DVOA to a ridiculous extent, make the Super Bowl in 37.6% of sims when they win and 26% of sims even if they lose this game. This is the top two defenses in the league with a big gap between them and everyone else. The gap between Baltimore and the number 3 defense, which is weirdly, we'll get to this in a second, Jacksonville, is as big as the gap between Jacksonville and the defense that ranks 14th. So these are the best defenses in the league. The difference is one team has Lamar Jackson and the other one has the corpse of Deshaun Watson.
And is missing their left tackle on Jedrick Willis. So that also might not be great when you go up against one of the 2 best defenses in the league this year. The Ravens are just so far ahead of everyone else in DVOA. They're nearly lapping the field. It makes sense that they're the best team because they're like the one team which hasn't really had an embarrassing, we kind of forgot how to play football loss yet this season. But the fact that they're so far ahead of everyone else.
Weird.
Yeah, it's surprising.
Yeah, especially because in the DVOA article this week, I compared their ranks to their ranks in EPA. And there are a couple of places higher on offense overall. But if you split things into pass offense and run offense, their ranks are basically the same. If you split it into pass defense and run defense, their ranks are basically the same. Usually with the Ravens, I have them ranked higher than a lot of other advanced metrics because of other advanced metrics not incorporating special teams, and the Ravens usually being one of the top special teams units, but that's not the case this year. They have a slightly above average special teams unit. So it's really strange that we have them so far ahead. Although, as I pointed out in a tweet earlier this week, even if you drop them all the way down to where they're tied with Kansas City at number 1 and rerun the playoff simulation, they're still a really good bet compared to the market odds to win the Super Bowl. Like, this is a team that is just better than people realize. They have clobbered 3 good opponents, one of which was the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah.
When they played the first time. Obviously, look, that was Dorian Thompson-Robinson getting his first NFL start. But, like, how much better has Deshaun Watson been than DTR this year?
Has Deshaun Watson been better than DTR, quite honestly? I mean, every time we see him, he's his arm strength seems to be shot. He doesn't have the same mobility he used to have. He looks disturbingly washed up when you consider just how much they give up to get him and how much is left on that contract. It's amazing how much fans are regretting him being on the team even after everything now. Not
even considering the regrets that people had regarding the all the off-field stuff. I looked at some stats. The team passing DVOA with Watson at quarterback for the Browns, 8% without a blitz, minus 41% with a blitz. You think the Ravens are going to bring a blitz?
They might once or twice, especially again, the loss of Jedrick Willis is very, very important. When you start putting backup tackles and things in there, that is going to be a problem.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see Roquan Smith with a sack or two. Like, they're going to be bringing guys, and it's interesting. You flip it around. The Browns' defense is better when they blitz, and Lamar has struggled against the blitz this year, but he was very good against the blitz last year. But he struggled against the blitz in 2021. Like, it's the tough thing with a lot of these split stats is that they can be so inconsistent from year to year, and you want to look at the larger picture and be like, quarterback X struggles with the blitz every year, but it's rarely that simple and easy to understand.
Yeah, but we're talking about 17 game sample sizes. Sometimes it's just not enough to really say for sure about anything, much less year-to-year variation. Cleveland's defense is going to need to stand on their head to win this one, I think. When they played in week 4, their defensive DVOA was minus 1.8%, which is fine, but they're going to need to be much, much, much better than
that's not as good as, I mean, even after you adjust for the quality of the Ravens offense, that's one of their probably worst games of the year because they've been so good in all their other games.
Yeah, I mean, they've held 2 teams under 100 yards of offense. I mean, one of those teams was starting Clayton Tune, so whether you call that NFL team or not is a bit debatable, but like, Cleveland doesn't let anyone get any yards,
Yeah, this is, it's hard not to go with my numbers. Right? So the line on this game is Ravens -6. And it's hard not to, like, we like the Ravens better than the market. The market says -6. I figure pick the Ravens. Like, it feels like the Ravens are just the better team. It does feel like if they're going to lose to somebody, this is the kind of team they might lose to, where the Browns defense just has an amazing game and shuts down Lamar Jackson. And then, maybe there's like a turnover touchdown or something, and the Browns win a defensive battle. But I feel pretty strongly about the Ravens in this one.
Yeah, I agree with you. Even if you don't think the Ravens are quite as good as DVOA thinks they are a better all-around team than Cleveland. And yeah, maybe they'll have another day where their receivers just all forget how to catch the ball, like they did against, I think it was Indianapolis, where they had like 10
Pittsburgh. It was against Pittsburgh where everybody dropped the passes. Yeah.
AFC North games end up being weird like that sometimes. So it should be interesting. We'll never know, but. Yeah, I like Ravens -6.
So we're both on the Ravens -6 in this one. Yeah. All right, let's move on to the most important game for the playoff odds. And a reminder, by the way, if you're watching us live, we do take your questions and comments about any game, even the ones we are not planning to talk about, like all the primetime games or anything involving Tommy DeVito. Texans at Bengals. Texans make the playoffs in 45% of sims with a win, 17% with a loss. Bengals, 67% with a win and 35% with a loss. That is juicing the Bengals rating in the simulation to try to account for the idea that Burrow is fully healthy by using their preseason projection on offense rather than what their actual offensive rating is. Now, even if you do that and they win this game, they still only make the playoffs 2/3 of the time because they started slow and because the Ravens are 2 games ahead of them as far as a division title, although there's a number of simulations where all 4 AFC North teams make the playoffs. Now, here's, I think, the number that might be biggest for this game is 23.
Yes.
That is the number of Houston Texans who are on the injury report this week.
Yeah, which is absolutely crazy. It looks like most of them aren't hugely serious. Like, I know Nico Collins is on there, but it sounds like he's going to be okay to go. But just you start getting issues with depth when you have like a third of your team unable to, practice on a full basis.
Will Anderson couldn't practice, right? Obviously, he's hugely important to the improvement of their pass rush this year. There's an amazing quarterback battle if Burrow is all the way back. If Burrow is all the way back, he's one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the game. Stroud is 3rd this year in DVOA. It's amazing because rookie quarterbacks are normally getting help from the run. Their running is 31st. No help from the run whatsoever.
No, Stroud hasn't been getting help for the run. Stroud hasn't been getting a lot of help from the offensive line. Stroud wasn't getting help from the special teams last week when the kicker got hurt. And, Stroud, his performance last week, we basically put the Texans on his back and just willed them to win, was absolutely amazing. One of the best performances of the year. Over the last month, your leaders in passing DYAR and DVOA are CJ Stroud and Joe Burrow. This is going to be a fantastic matchup there.
So looking at some places where Stroud could succeed, I looked at some splits. Stroud, 55% DVOA with 7.8 yards per pass when he gets blitzed. He's been really good against the blitz, so don't blitz him. Stroud is awesome throwing up the middle, and the Bengals defense is average. Stroud throws up the middle more often than the league average, and he does it really, really well. And the Bengals are 30th against tight ends. So it might be a Dalton Schultz day. The flip of that, Burrow struggled throwing deep when he was injured.
Yes.
The last 2 weeks, he's been fine throwing deep. And Houston ranks 31st against deep passes of 16 or more air yards.
Yeah, it's amazing how much difference being able to plant on your foot makes when you're trying to get those deep shots out there.
Yeah.
We talked about the Texans injuries. Both Bengals receivers, both Chase and Higgins, were on the injury report as well. So there's a lot of moving parts here when we're trying to project what these teams are going to be able to do, just moving the ball downfield. I am concerned that Houston is not going to be able to get any sort of consistent pressure on Burrow, which is going to let him have all the time he needs to hit deep shots to whoever happens to be suiting up and healthy.
Yeah, they're third in ESPN's pass rush win rate, and Greenard has been great this year. But if Will Anderson can't play, that's a big problem.
Yeah, and Houston only has 17 sacks this season, and 6 of those came against Bryce Young in a game where Bryce Young just did not look like he knew what to do on a football field. So I can imagine that being the difference. You have 2 offenses which are both capable of putting up a lot of points, and one defense can get pressure, the other one can't. That might end up being the difference on this one.
Bengals -7 is the line.
That's a lot.
And I will tell you that the projected line from my picks formula is -7.
Fantastic.
So this week is incredible. There is no game where the projected line is different from the actual line by more than 1.5 points. And there are 3 games where the projected line hits the actual line exactly. It is a terrible week to be betting on spreads. But if I had to bet on this game, I would say Cincinnati because of that Houston injury report.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I wish it was 6.5. I wish I could get the full touchdown win there, but just the issue, depth starts to become an issue. And on paper, you would imagine the Bengals are a better team than the Texans, fully healthy. The Texans are still kind of building up and recovering from the last couple of years. The Bengals are there. So if the Texans aren't at full strength, I mean, I'll take the over on this one, but I'll take Cincinnati -7.
The next game is your favorite team, the San Francisco 49ers, trying to finally get back on the winning column at the surprisingly good on defense Jacksonville Jaguars. I believe this is the game that we are getting in New England. A lot of the country is getting this game at 1:00. The playoff odds are the 49ers are 98%, 93%. They're basically it. The Jaguars are 93% with a win, 83% with a loss. And it's really amazing because if I had told you before the season that one of these two teams would be third on defense, but only 13th on offense because the quarterback was not playing as well as he did last year, which team would you expect would be third on defense but 13th on offense?
Oh, obviously, it's San Francisco. I mean, you mean Brock Purdy in the 13th on offense? That makes total sense. It's fantastic. All right.
Instead, San Francisco is 15th on defense despite a ridiculous amount of talent. That's before you even consider adding Chase Young. And first on offense, even with Purdy not being as good the last couple of games.
Yeah. The last couple of games is really throwing the wrench in there. In week 7 and 8, San Francisco had the worst defensive DVOA in the league, which does not make sense considering how good, just how much raw talent's on the defense. It's missed tackles. They were missing tackles left and right, and when you can't get off the field, that makes everything that much worse. I don't believe the Niners have suddenly forgotten how to tackle people. I think that it's going to be a bit of a blip in the long run here. But yeah, the Niners haven't won since week 5, and you gave the odds at the beginning. Niners 98% to make the playoffs to win, 93% to a loss. The mood in the Niners Nation right now seems like that's 20%. Like the Niners are toast. They haven't won since October. Everything the sky is falling, right?
Right, but they've still played. I mean, they were far enough ahead. Their DVOA has dropped to they're third. They're still third in the league, even with the 3 losses. And their schedule, sets up for them to make the playoffs. I don't remember exactly what their percentage chances of the number 1 seed. I think that they are third in line for the number 1 seed behind Philly and Detroit, where Philly and Detroit have easier schedules the rest of the way. But I still feel San Francisco is really good. Interestingly, one of the big weaknesses for San Francisco, as you know, over the last couple of years has been deep pass defense. This year, they are 12th against deep passes. Trevor Lawrence, number 1 on deep passes this year among all quarterbacks. He should test. Even though the 49ers have been better, he should test that.
That does surprise me because Lawrence has the second quickest time to throw in the league. He's been getting out the ball very quickly, very short. So I'm assuming part of that is that defenses are keying up so much on those quick short passes that's leaving the deep pass wide more open for them when they hit him as a change of pace.
Useful Title asks, does Philly actually have an easier schedule than the 49ers over the rest of the season? I believe that they do because of the last 3 games.
Yeah, the Eagles have a gauntlet coming up here.
Philly has a gauntlet coming up where they play Buffalo and they play San Francisco and they play Dallas again. But then they have the last 3 games are Giants, Cardinals, Giants. Yeah. Pretty much. Obviously it's the NFL. Anything can happen. But unless they don't care, you write that in as 3 wins for Philadelphia.
Yeah, we will figure out the exact state of the race for the top seed in that 5-week stretch. Buffalo, Kansas City, San Francisco, Dallas, Seattle.
I think Detroit's going to get the top seed. ESPN asked me for a surprising pick for the rest of the season for a piece that they're running with all the writers, and I said Detroit number 1 seed. That's my thing.
That's what I do if I do go game by game predict. That's what I come out with too. That schedule is very nice for Detroit.
Jaguars give up 47 yards per game receiving to running backs. That is a weakness for the Jaguars. That is not a good weakness to have against the San Francisco 49ers.
There were a couple pretty good pass catching backs. Yeah, that might be something you can do there.
The line is San Francisco -3.
I'm taking the Jaguars +3. I am nervous about this one. I can imagine a world in which the Niners keep getting pressure like they've been doing, but also do not get to the quarterback enough. They have had a crazy number of plays where they have gotten pressure, gotten quarterback hits, but it's been completed passes anyway. They both has 9 quarterback hits that have ended up incomplete passes, which is insane. And Lawrence is so good at getting the ball out that fast.
Look at Mike is watching us. Hi, Mike. Hey, Lions are +250 to get the first overall seed based on DraftKings odds. That's an interesting bet. Here's the weird thing. I'm not the 49ers fan. but I think I'd take 49ers -3. Now, interestingly, the system likes Jaguars +3 very slightly. I like 49ers -3. I think the 49ers they're going to bounce back. They've got the bye week. They had the rest. I think they're going to bounce back. Jacksonville's good, better than people realize. I think San Francisco will bounce back. So I like San Francisco -3.
The Jaguars also have the bye week. That's
they did. They did.
Okay. The Niners have a horrible rest differential this year. I think they have 20 fewer days of rest than their opponents. So over the course of the season.
All right. So much for that. All right.
Yeah. A little bit nervous.
One more good 1 p.m. game, and that is, well, I mean, I guess depending on, your mileage may vary, but it's an important 1 p.m. game, and that is the New Orleans Saints at the Minnesota Vikings. Saints make the playoffs 93% of the time if they win, 74% if they lose. Vikings 69% if they win, 36% if they lose. The Saints defense is better against the pass, although the Vikings run game is just 28th. So I don't know if the Vikings can really take advantage of the Saints run defense not being as good as it's been in past years. I mean, these teams are very similar by DVOA. New Orleans is slightly better, but they're both about average on offense. They're both a little bit above average on defense.
The continuing legend of Josh Dobbs, going from town to town, winning football games. It's his before, being able to come in last week with no practice, not knowing the plays, not knowing the names of people he's throwing to, and putting together a competent offensive game is going to be one of the most memorable moments of this year. Absolutely astonishing.
What I've been saying is you have to judge what Dobbs will do going forward based not on this one game, but based on Dobbs' whole career. But that one game is an amazing story, and there needs to be a documentary on Josh Dobbs' 2023 season and how he's gone from team to team and won early, maybe did win early with Arizona, but kept Arizona competitive early, and they beat Dallas, and then he goes to Minnesota and they beat Atlanta. It's a really interesting season, but at the same time, just based on his career, you have to think the Vikings are worse. The Vikings are worse with Josh Dobbs at quarterback than they were with Kirk Cousins at quarterback. It's just, you have to think of it that way.
Let me play Mike for a minute here with the prop I've dug up. Josh Dobbs under 0.5 passing touchdowns, plus 195. No, Saints are 9th in pass defense DVOA. Do you sell on the miracle Josh Dobbs narrative and say that, oh no, he gets absolutely shut down now after a week of practice?
And the thing is, the Saints are excellent against number 1 wide receivers and not good against 2s and 3s. But without Justin Jefferson, the Vikings are very dependent on Jordan Addison as the number 1 wide receiver. And I don't know what Osborne was hurt last week. I think he's okay. The Vikings, by the way, are poor against number 2 wide receivers. They actually allow more yards per game to the 2 than they do to the 1. So maybe Michael Thomas with a big day if you're looking for a good prop bet in this one.
KJ Osborne is still in the concussion protocol. So
they may be without Osborne and Jefferson, which means they're without 2 of their top 3 receivers.
And TJ Hawkinson was limited with the rib injury as well. So let's keep crossing them off as we're going down the list here.
Yeah. Also, the Saints are the. Sorry, what?
That plus 195 is looking better and better as I'm going down that injury report.
The line is Saints -2.5. This is the best bet of the week, according to the system, is Saints -2.5. I actually played a teaser on this. I did Saints plus 3.5 teased with over 35.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. 35 is not that hard of a game to.
But if you don't think they're going to score a lot of points, you can do Saints plus 3.5 teased with under 47.
Yeah. Frankly, it seems like we're going to be right in the middle of there. So do both and try to double up on your hits there.
So what do you think? Saints? You go with Saints -2.5 on this one?
Yeah, I'm going Saints -2.5, which is going to put the Vikings really behind the 8 ball when it comes to getting that last wild card spot.
All right, let's move to the 4 p.m. games. There's 2 we want to talk about. Again, neither of them is the national game, but if you're lucky, you're going to get to watch one of these 2 games. The first one is the Detroit Lions at the Los Angeles Chargers. The Lions are basically in the playoffs. The Chargers, 44% of the time with a win, 23% with a loss. Detroit is 4th in DVOA still. Chargers are 12th in DVOA.
And the Lions have gotten the week off, while the Chargers are on a short week coming off of the Monday night game.
A couple of things that favor the Lions offense here. The Chargers have struggled against larger personnel sets, 12s and 21s, while the Lions are a yard per play better with 12 personnel than they are with 11. And the Lions are above average on passes up the middle, and the Chargers are the worst defense in the league against passes up the middle.
Oof. Yeah, it sounds like a recipe for a big day for Laporta going out, just going down the seams over and over and over again there.
Yeah, it's been a great rookie year, but he has slowed down a little bit, I think, in the last couple of games. But yeah, this could be a very big game for him. The Lions are 6th against wide receiver 1s, but 29th against wide receiver 2s. So hey, Quentin Johnston, this is your chance to wake up, dude. Come on.
That speed element we were all expecting, the Chargers to add with him, that stretching the field. If there was ever a time to start that, now is the time. The Chargers have to get up and go, considering how messy the AFC wildcard picture is.
Without Mike on, we don't have anybody to be properly cynical about Justin Herbert and the Chargers. Their DVOA is a little bit better than their record, but not like, it's like slightly above average, which seems like what you're going to put on their tombstone. Here lieth the Los Angeles Chargers. They were slightly above average.
Mike is gaining more and more confidence by the week, especially when people watch that Monday night game. That Jets-Chargers game was unwatchable at points on offense, with both teams at times looking like they did not know what this weird brown orb was and what to do with it.
But I mean, the real problem with the Chargers is they're 23rd on defense. And, they shut down Zach Wilson, whoop-de-doo. It's going to be a lot harder against Goff, right? I mean, against the Ben Johnson offense.
Absolutely. And the Chargers are at the very tail end of the mess that is the middle of the wildcard picture right now. It's hard to see them fighting their way through all the AFC North teams, all the runners up. The Bills are ahead of them. There's such a mess around there. The Chargers need to find something that they can really hang their hat on. Like, this is what we are. This is what we do. And instead, right now, what they want to do is kind of be okay throwing the ball downfield. That's not going to work.
The Iceman says the Lions defense has feasted on bad quarterbacks. So if Herbert is going to do anything, now is the time. I mean, I still think of Herbert as a good quarterback. Yes. What I don't think of Herbert as is a great quarterback.
And it's surprising how little the offensive coordinator change has. That hasn't really given them any kind of boost. We were really hoping for, because Kellen Moore is a more competent offensive coordinator than Joe Lombardi is. The Chargers look better put together than they did under Lombardi, but it has not translated into anything more in terms of yards and points and anything like that.
Lions -3.
That seems very low. I would take Lions -4, -5. I would keep it going up. Give me Lions -3.
Yeah, I guess I would too. I wouldn't bet this game, honestly. Like, this is one of those lines this week that's just good. One more. Let's talk really quickly about the Washington Commanders at the Seattle Seahawks. This game is mostly important because the Seahawks, the Commanders are in 31% if they win, 8% if they lose, but the Seahawks are in 83% if they win, 51% if they lose. Now, Washington is better running the ball than passing, and Washington is better against the run than against the pass. So Howell is better on deep passes than short passes, but the Seahawks defense is better on deep passes than on short passes. So, this one is Seattle is the better team, and they're at home, and I feel pretty good about them. Commanders also give up a league-leading, opponent-adjusted 100 yards a game to number one wide receivers. So this may be your DK Metcalf prop week.
Yeah, Washington has looked more competent on offense over the past few weeks.
Howell has looked better in the pot. I watched, obviously, against New England, and his clock was much better against New England.
Yeah, he's only been sacked 4 times in the last 2 weeks, which is a major step forward for him. He's still on pace for 83 in the single season record, so that's not out of the books at all yet. But he's beginning to actually do things with time in the pocket. His DVOA over the first 4 weeks was -42.9%. Over the last 5 weeks, it's -7.5%. So now he's been just slightly below average, which is something you can actually start working with there. Meanwhile, Geno Smith's numbers have tanked since the first month. Smith was at 21.2% DVOA through the first month, just minus 3.4% over the last 5 weeks. Seattle is kind of trending in the wrong direction. I mean, they only had 6 first downs last week, but against a Washington team which has traded away all of its pass rush.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
They were getting to Mac Jones, but that's Mac Jones. So the line is Seattle by 6. I think I would take the Commanders +6.
Yeah, I'd take Seattle to win, but I like Washington to cover on that. It feels like a game where the Seahawks could win by a field goal late, that kind of thing.
It's not, again, this is a bad week to play spreads. This is just, the spreads are really accurate this week. And the only places where they're not necessary are places where you just don't know if they're accurate because you just don't know how good is the Vikings offense with Josh Dobbs, that kind of thing. So
it explains why Mike's out this week. He's
avoiding the really difficult spreads of week 10.
Getting that tuna melt and taking one for the team to get out of that one. Yes.
All right. Thank you, Bryan Knowles. Thank you so much for sitting in for Mike this week. So if you want to follow Bryan and get all of his work on Threads, he is Bryno, BRYKNO _. Yeah. And on Twitter, he is Bryno, BRYKNO without an underscore.
I'll get that underscore back one day, Threads. You'll see me playing.
And he's on Blue Sky also. We're all on 900 social networks at this point, just desperately trying to figure out which is the one that we're eventually going to be talking about football all day on Sunday, on which network is going to be the talking about football network.
You'll find all my stuff. I post everything on everything. You'll find me somewhere there or on Discord.
Yeah. And meanwhile, Mike will be back on Monday. So join us on Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern as we will review Week 10 in the NFL and preview the Monday night game between Buffalo and Denver. That does it for me, Aaron Schatz. Thank you for watching the Schatz and Tanier NFL podcast on the FTN network. Everybody have a great weekend.